My name is Janet. My boyfriend Tucker is the greatest guy I've ever met. He's a hard worker and so smart. His family doesn't think that I'm good for him. Despite having a medical degree and several awards for my achievements over the years, I still couldn't earn their hard-won respect. See, it wouldn't matter if I were the president of the United States or a homeless woman on the streets. Nothing about my personality or career would change their minds. I am a black woman. Tucker is a good guy, but he comes from a family of racists. He said this himself. He warned me that he wasn't overly keen on introducing me to his family because he knew that their reactions would be upsetting. We kept our relationship a secret from his family for a long time. By the time we considered getting married, I had finished my residency and was starting to specialize in trauma response. When I was young, my parents and I were in a terrible accident caused by a drunk driver. I was knocked into a 6-month coma and woke up to a weak body and no parents. Ever since, I've known that I wanted to be like the doctors that worked tirelessly to save my life. About a month after my residency finished, Tucker invited me to dinner. We went to a lovely cafe where we enjoyed a great meal. Tucker stood up and then dropped to one knee in front of my chair.
Janet, you are my sun and my stars. I love you in the day and the night because you always light up, no matter where you go. You make me smile no matter what, on the hard days and the impossible ones. You remind me of all the good things in the world. We've been together since we were both 20, young and dumb and full of love to share, and I'm glad that I found you to share that love with. Here we are 15 years later, and I am ready to say that I want to share more. I want to share the rest of my life, no matter how sick we get. I'm ready to spend every minute with you, no matter how annoying we start to find each other. I will fight every battle at your side and love you for every part of you, whether a perceived flaw or not. Our lives are intertwined, and we are meant to spend the rest of our lives together. So, Janet Pomono, will you marry me?
Tears pricked at my eyes and I felt my cheeks heat up. Yes, of course, yes. 1,000,000 times, yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and then, all of a sudden, we were tied together for the rest of our lives, and I had never been happier. The other people in the restaurant stood and clapped as I threw myself into Tucker's arms. That night, as we laid in bed pressed into each other, I voiced my concerns. We'll probably have to talk to your family now.
I don't think that it will go down well. They really are the worst sort of racists, you know. They'll pitch a royal fit when I tell them about you.
Let them. If they don't learn to accept us, then that's their problem. I want to give them the opportunity to do better, though. And this is the best way to go about that, I think. I want to have the chance for a family.
And I want you to have a family, too. But please, don't get your hopes up.
I promise I won't. I'll keep my expectations low, but at least we can say we gave it a try. I was pleased that he was willing to try, but I was anxious, too. I've met a fair few racist people in my time, and I've experienced the worst of what people are capable of. I've had patients refuse treatment, shout slurs, and accuse me of millions of things. I could weather whatever they threw at me. It was a few weeks after the engagement that we were both able to take time off to make the trip to his parents' house in the next state over. I worked as a doctor, so my time was not often free, and Tucker was a successful lawyer in his uncle's law firm. We were both busy people. One weekend, though, after his case had come to a close, and I had completed a course and worked enough overtime to earn some off time, we jumped into the car and drove 10 hours to his parents' house. When we got there, Tucker and I were both quiet with nerves. We were both about to take a real risk, and we had no way of knowing how this would go. Tucker got out of the car first, and I followed behind him, nervous to show my face. When they opened the door, his parents pulled Tucker into a hug and invited him inside. I tried to introduce myself before they closed the door in my face, but they just looked at me like I was dirt.
Are you here to clean the cars? I'll pay 50% extra if you wash my son's car, too. There's a good girl, and be sure you don't steal anything. I'm on the police force, so I have a gun. Dad, no. This is Janet. Mom, Dad, this is my fiancé.
Are you joking? This girl? But Tucker, darling, she's black.
And we've immediately landed on the reason why I never told you about this before. Janet and I have been together for 15 years.
We were still standing on the porch, but Tucker took my hand and pulled me inside the house. His parents had no choice but to let me inside too, though they were visibly reluctant to let me sit down.
15 years, Tucker? That's not possible. You told me that you were dating a girl who was studying medicine. Whatever happened to her?
She graduated, and now she's a doctor. Janet is the doctor, Mom. Nonsense. Who's ever heard of a black doctor? Civilized people, Dad. People not born in the 1600s. How could you hold on to these prejudices after all this time? What proof do you need that the color of your skin has no bearing on your worth? White people are the superior race.
I think that's about as much as I'm willing to suffer through, Tucker.
Excellent. Let her go, Tucker. There will always be other girls.
I stood up, and Tucker stood up with me.
Sorry, Father, that you were under the misconception that I would be choosing you over her, but that's simply not the case. I'm going to leave, and at any point in the near future, you're free to apologize. But if you never do, then I'll never return.
We left, and they didn't come after him. We didn't speak until we pulled up to the hotel, and even then, it was only to offer to carry the bags. That night, we ordered pizza and laid in bed watching movies and didn't discuss the event at all. It was upsetting for us both, but I was old hat at having no parents by then. For Tucker, the absolute in their relationship was taking its toll. We returned home the next day, and then the new hell started. First, we had police officers at the door, demanding to know what I had done to Tucker. When Tucker came to the door beside me, he asked what was wrong.
We received a call that you were being held hostage. Well, as you can see, I'm not. I think perhaps you were tricked by my parents. I'm incredibly sorry that you had to listen to that nonsense. They're truly despicable. I work as a lawyer. I could help you prosecute for wasting police time. Okay, we'll be in touch. I apologize for the disruption of your day.
The next day, my boss called me and said someone had been writing emails claiming I have been stealing hospital supplies, but she knew it wasn't true immediately. I knew it was my mother-in-law. Later that day, Tucker called to tell me that he had received a call from his parents. It turned out that they lost their life savings in scam and had been forced to sell their house to cover their debts. After all that they had said, they wanted Tucker to give them money so that they could get another place to live. As he told me this, he laughed it off.
As if I would give them a single dime. Those two are insane.
They truly were, but we never would have guessed what they would do next. A week after he had told them no, they showed up at our house while Tucker had just stepped out for a few minutes. I answered the door and they barged their way in and started waving guns around and threatening me.
You harlot. You stole our son from us and now you're forcing him to refuse to give us money. We'll make you pay for this.
That's right. There's no way a good boy like our Tucker would ever willingly marry someone like you.
They pointed their guns at me and they would have pulled the triggers. Then suddenly police and Tucker burst through the door behind them. When my mother-in-law saw the police, she collapsed as a doctor. I had to resuscitate her before the police handcuffed.
Why would you call the cops on us? Oh, I wish that I had aborted you so we could have saved us the trouble of having a son that turned out like you. She must have used black magic on you.
Before they could say another word, they were dragged away by the police.
I'm so sorry, honey. As soon as I saw my parents' car in the driveway, I assumed the worst and called the police, and then had to wait for them to arrive to come inside. And I am very glad that I called them. Are you hurt? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just really shaken up. I thought I was going to die for a second there. The police dragged them away and made sure not to be gentle with them. I think I even saw one officer slam my father-in-law's head off the car door frame as he forced him into the back of a squad car. As it turned out, the two of them had been drinking and doing drugs and talking about how I ruined their son's life and that they needed to come to our state and kill me so that their son could then marry a white woman. It was so incredibly absurd and insane. Neither Tucker nor I could have possibly seen this coming. A month later, the two of them were in court, and the judge that was presiding over the case was black. Regardless, though, he was more than fair, and despite how cruel they were being in the courtroom towards him, he only gave them the minimum sentence providing they maintained good behavior in prison. Each was given 15 years with a chance of parole after 8 years. However, the two of them just couldn't keep out of trouble and kept causing fights with the black inmates around them. As far as I'm concerned, though, it serves them right. Their hatred put them into prison, and their hatred is keeping them in prison. It's rather poetic, really. As for Tucker and I, we're still very much in love with one another, and just yesterday we celebrated the birth of our second child, a lovely little girl named Kayla. Along with our son, we are the happiest family on the planet, and it fills my heart with joy that I was finally able to find the family that I've always been longing for. Thanks for watching.
Hi, my name is David, and I used to be a postman. My wife is Latrice, and she's a pharmaceutical saleswoman. It's been 3 years since I married Latrice. Our marriage has been great and steady, and full of the kind of love one could only dream of having. We've suffered some road bumps along the way. I lost my job, and Latrice has really had to step up to provide for us. But while I search for a new job, I've been taking care of everything around the house. The new routine is one we've settled into rather quickly. It seems no matter what trial we face, we can always face it together, as one. At least I thought we could until my father-in-law, Joel, came to visit. The visit seemed innocuous at first. He laughed with my wife and pretended I didn't exist, except to give me a painfully stiff handshake. But that wasn't anything abnormal. It wasn't until my wife left for work that he scowled at me.
Why aren't you getting ready for work?
I lost my job, sir.
Lost your job? And you ain't got a new one yet?
I'm looking, but
So you're going to sit around the house all day and do nothing while my baby girl is going out and breadwinning for the both of you?
sir, it's not like that.
I knew it from the beginning. I told my daughter from the beginning you weren't going to provide, and here you are, sitting at home while she has to make ends meet.
I'm looking for a job, sir, and I've been taking care of everything at home while she's out for work.
Well,
Joel reached his finger out and dragged his finger across the table.
this table seems pretty dusty. You'd better get to work then.
I wanted to argue. My mind raced and my face flushed with heat. But despite my anger, Joel was right. I did have work to do around the house before I started applying for more jobs. So that's what I did. I put away the clean dishes, put on a load of laundry, put out some ground beef to thaw for dinner, and, yes, did some light dusting. All the while, Joel kept a close and judgmental eye on me, on every move I made. But once I finished the chores around the house, I sat down at the desk in my wife and I's office and began searching for jobs on my laptop. It wasn't long before my father-in-law poked his head in and asked what I was doing. I'm looking for a job, sir.
It sure don't look like you're applying for no job.
Joel gestured to my clothes, a pair of tattered jeans and a t-shirt that didn't quite fit my frame. It's laundry day, sir.
Where's your suit?
I don't need one, sir. I'm applying for jobs online.
Online? Well, no wonder you can't find no job, looking on that internet. Back in my day, we dressed up in our best suit and walked right through the front door of a business with our resume. That's your problem, right there. You can't get a job staring at that screen all day.
I was shocked. My father-in-law had never been my biggest fan, but he had never spoken to me like this either. I asked for my father-in-law to leave, and though he called me ungrateful and a disappointment, he left. Later that night, I washed the dishes from that night's dinner, while Latrice answered emails on her phone. I'd been thinking about what her father said all day, and I wanted to speak to her about it. But I waited until she was done with her phone to speak up. Hey, honey.
Yeah?
I need to speak with you. It's about your dad.
What about him?
He was very rude to me today. He thinks that I'm a disappointment because I don't have a job.
Did you tell him you're looking for a new one?
I did, but he wouldn't hear it. He thinks applying for jobs online is me being lazy. He wants me to put on a suit and walk into a business.
I'm so sorry, David. He's always been very old-fashioned. He shouldn't have spoken to you like that.
What if he's right?
What do you mean?
What if he's right? I lost my job. You've had to be the only source of income in our household. I feel like I've failed you, Latrice. Failed us.
David, no, you haven't failed us at all. Look, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. How would you feel about continuing what we're doing now?
You don't want me to get a job?
Of course I do, only if you want to, though. But think about it, David. My job makes enough money for both of us to live comfortably, and I've really been enjoying coming home to a house without chores. It's been a nice change of pace. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad if one of us stayed home while the other went to work.
What about your dad?
Oh, don't worry about my dad. I'll take care of him. I'll have a long talk with him tomorrow about the way he's been treating you. So, what do you think? Is that something you would be interested in?
Why don't I sleep on it? I'll think about it and get back to you.
Sure, David. Just let me know.
Latrice's words kept me up all night. blinking wide-eyed at the ceiling and wondering what our future would look like without both of us contributing financially. She was right. Her job paid plenty. And since I'd lost my job, the house had never been cleaner. Maybe it wouldn't be such a bad thing to keep going the way we were. But above Latrice's voice in my head, another, much louder one haunted me. Joel's voice. It yelled at me, telling me I was a disappointment, a failure, all horrible things. That morning, Latrice and I shared a goodbye kiss, and she went off for work while I stayed, maintaining the house, running errands, and applying for jobs. The day had been quiet, but then a knock sounded at the door. It was Joel. He was furious, yelling at me for asking him to leave the day before. "You ought to know better than to treat your elders like that, boy." "Yes, sir." "Now come here. I got something to show you." Joel led me to his car, full of blankets and old food wrappers. There was also an old, musty suit laid across the back seat. He grabbed it and tossed it at me. I barely caught it in time. "Now you're gonna put that suit on, take your resume, and go down to that cleaning service down the road and ask for a job since you like cleaning so much." "What? Joel, what are you talking about?" "You heard me, boy, and don't come back to this house until you have a job. I don't care if you have to go door to door asking to clean people's houses. You don't come back to this house until I know you can provide for my daughter." I could only watch with the suit clenched in my hands as Joel ran into my house. I tried to follow him, but he shut and locked the door. I banged on the door and yelled for him to let me in, but he refused. His face appeared in the window. "You heard me, boy. Don't come back to this house until you got a job." "You mean my house?" "You mean my daughter's house." I tried to grab my phone, but it wasn't in either of my pockets. I had left it inside the house. There was no way for me to contact Latrice. I had been kicked out of my own house by my own father-in-law. I was too shocked to be angry. So, with no other place to go, suit still in my hand, I walked down the street all the way to the nearest cafe, biting back the tears welling in my eyes. When I arrived at the cafe, I set the suit down on the seat next to me and placed my head in my hands. Hours passed of me, trying not to cry and hoping my wife would follow her usual routine. Thankfully, she did. She walked into the cafe at the same time she always said she did. But when her eyes locked with mine, her eyebrows furrowed and she approached me.
David?
"Hey, honey."
What are you doing here? Is that my dad's suit?
"Your dad kicked me out of the house.
What?
He said that if I don't get a job, I can't come back to the house."
But I spoke to him this morning. You know what? No more of this. Come on, we're headed home.
"What are you going to do?"
Remind my dear old father that I married you and not him.
Latrice drove us back home. I couldn't shake the guilt that she had to spend her break dealing with this instead of getting her afternoon snack and coffee. But her face was so filled with rage, and I recognized from all our years together that when she's that angry, the best thing I could do is let her do her thing. When we arrived at the house, Latrice slammed her fist against the door, demanding her father to open up. When Joel came to the door, his face was set with the same expression as my wife's. "Did your husband get a job yet?"
You listen to me. I am tired of you treating my husband as less than because he doesn't have a job. I don't care how things were done back in your day. Times have changed, Dad. David is looking for a job, and if he isn't, that's fine too. I told him he could stay home and handle the household chores while I work if he wanted to.
"Now why would you do such a foolish thing?
It's not foolish, Dad. David and I are a team. We don't have to both work. My job makes enough money for both of us, and if David wants to stay home, he can do that. If he wants to get a job or 2 or 3, he can do that too. It's not about providing, Daddy. It's about taking care of each other. You may not approve of how we do things, but shouldn't you just be happy that David treats me right? Shouldn't you be happy that I come home, tired from work every day, to a home-cooked meal, to a clean house, to a smiling husband that's going to watch movies with me until we fall asleep together? You never did that for Mom. You went to work, then went home and went to sleep. You never spent time with her, and that's why she left.
I was stunned. I had never known this about Joel. I remembered Latrice's mom had been sad apart from Joel at our wedding, but had never thought much of it. Joel's eyes welled with tears, and his jaw set.
"I'm sorry, but I did everything I could to take care of you. That's why I worked so many hours, why I couldn't spend much time with you or your mother. I did that so you would have a roof over your head, food in your stomach."
I know, Daddy, and I appreciate that. but I would have gone hungry if it meant I actually got to spend time with you when I was younger. I'm a grown-up now, Dad. I'm not going to go hungry if David doesn't have a job. My job is great. I don't need a silent provider. I need a partner. Someone who's always there for me. That's what David is.
Maybe you're right. I'm so sorry, sweetheart.
I don't want your apology, Dad, but I think you do owe one to someone else.
Joel looked me in the eyes, a tear streaming down his cheek. For the first time in years, he looked at me with something that wasn't disappointment, resentment, or anger. Instead, guilt painted his face. He offered his hand, and I took it. He shook my hand, gentle and not overly stiff.
I'm sorry, son. I guess I just don't want my daughter to be put in a bad position. I can't provide for her anymore. So when I thought that you couldn't, I was scared.
What do you mean, Dad?
I wasn't going to tell you, Latrice, honey, but I lost my job as well.
What?
And the house. I've been living out of my car the past few weeks.
Suddenly, the food wrappers and mess inside of Joel's car made sense.
Oh, Daddy. Why didn't you say anything?
I was embarrassed.
Well, why don't you stay with us? You would do that for me? After the way I treated you?
As long as you promise not to lock my husband out of the house anymore.
No, I can't stay at your house free of charge. I'll help you find a job until you get back on your feet. I can show you how to use the internet and how to make an online application. I would certainly appreciate that, David. Latrice, thank you both so much for this.
Of course, Daddy.
For the next few months, Joel stayed in the guest room of mine and Latrice's house. I showed him how to use the computer, how to build a resume online, and where to apply. Joel even offered to help out around the house every now and then. Eventually, he found a good job at a carpentry business, and soon after, managed to find his own apartment. My relationship with Joel improved over time. More and more, he smiled and joked with me, offered to take me fishing, even shared a beer with me one fateful game day. Latrice got a raise from her job, only further securing our future, and I eventually found a part-time job at a bakery to fill the days when there isn't much to do at home. Our lives are improving every day, and though it isn't always perfect, our future is brighter than it has ever been. Thanks for watching. My name is Juno, and I haven't had the easiest life. Growing up, my parents always treated my older brother Jeff and me differently. While I would get scolded for anything that I did, he was always praised. If he broke something, my parents would blame me, even if it was obvious that I had done nothing wrong. They always favored Jeff because he was smart and looked exactly like our father, whereas I didn't look like either of my parents. Even when we occasionally got into fights, our parents always would take Jeff's side despite the fact that most of the time he would hit me, and I never retaliated. My family owned a corporation that manufactured car parts, and my father was the CEO while my mother handled the finances. Even though they made good money, I knew that they would never pay for my college tuition, so I made plans to find a job once I graduated high school. I knew that it would be hard for me to make enough money to live off of and go to school, but I also knew that it would be worth it. But then, one day my parents came home and sat me down. Listen, Juno, your mother and I have made a decision about your future. My heart skipped a beat. I was skeptical about what they were going to say, but I was also incredibly hopeful that they might tell me that they would pay for my schooling.
Yes, this is very good news.
You are young, but we have made arrangements for you to be married. You can't be serious? How could you do this to me?
Oh, we are serious and you've been useless. This arranged marriage will benefit our company as we are marrying you to the niece of the owner of Timo Corporation. They are one of our biggest clients.
But I'm 18. What if I don't love this woman? What's the problem? I assumed you would be interested in being set up with an older woman. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But the next day, they told me to clean up and then get dressed in a brand new suit that they had bought for me. Looking in the mirror, I was amazed to see how well it fit and how distinguished it made me look. They even bought me hair products and cologne to use. Later that day, We drove over to a mansion with a tall gate surrounding it. Once inside, we were escorted to a room where a large woman was sitting waiting for us.
Hello there. Oh my, but aren't you the handsome young man? You will be marrying my niece Kendra, although I'm sure she wouldn't mind if I had a bit of fun with you too.
So then this will make things between our companies square.
Yes. I will sign off on the contracts and give you more work, and the debt that you accumulated will be forgiven as well. I wouldn't normally let so much money go, but hopefully this handsome and energetic young man will make up for it. I can't wait to get him upstairs.
I was mortified. I had never met a woman who was so lecherous. Shocked, I tried to get my parents' attention so that I could get out of this situation, but they ignored me. Suddenly, a pair of security guards showed up and escorted me to a large room on the second floor. Once we were alone, Beatrice began to act even more inappropriately.
Oh yes, you are a handsome thing.
She slowly began to approach me, and I didn't like the look in her eyes. Just before she was about to lay a hand on me, though, I heard a call through the door.
Hello, Aunt Beatrice, are you in there?
Oh damn, well young man, maybe we'll have some fun later. Yes, Kendra, please come in.
Hello, who is this?
This is your new husband.
Husband, are you serious?
Yes, it's well past time that you were married. People will think something is wrong with you that you are 25 and unmarried.
What is your name and how old are you?
My name is Juno, and I'm 18.
18? Aunt Beatrice, are you crazy?
What's the problem? He is young and full of energy, and he's handsome as well. If you're truly unhappy, then just enjoy him for a few years and then find someone else.
I can't believe you. That's the reason that you've never been married. You treat men like napkins. You use them and discard them without a care in the world.
I didn't know what to say, but the way that Kendra looked at her aunt, I knew that something was up. They had a very strained relationship. I was worried that Kendra would be very similar to her aunt, but over the next few months as I got to know her, she was actually very kind and had a good heart. Some nights she would come home late from work, and I would prepare a meal, and we would talk the whole night about our interests and what we did that day. I found her work so incredibly fascinating, and I admired her work ethic. Slowly, we got to know each other, and found out that we had the same taste in music, books, and TV shows. Although it had been arranged against my will, I was actually beginning to fall for Kendra. I later found out that Kendra's parents had owned the company she worked for, and that they had passed away when she was very young. Her aunt had taken over since she was too young to run the company. Thankfully, Kendra constantly put herself between her aunt and me. More than once, her Aunt Beatrice tried to get me alone with her, but Kendra always made sure that it didn't happen. I know some guys would jump at the chance to be with an older woman, but I had no interest in Beatrice, especially since I was falling for Kendra, although I didn't say anything. One day, she came home rather upset, and I tried to comfort her. What's wrong, Kendra? Did you have a bad day?
Oh, hello there, Juno. Yeah, it was a really tough one. I wish I could tell you more, but I can't at the moment. But don't worry. I have a plan to make sure that this will be my last tough day.
I didn't understand what she meant, and she wouldn't elaborate. It was hard, but I had faith that she knew what she was doing. That night we curled up on the couch and watched movies to relax. A few nights later, I was home alone when I heard the front door open and close. Thinking that it was Kendra coming home, I went to greet her and was shocked to see that it was Beatrice.
There's the young man that I want.
How did you get in here?
I have a spare key, of course. Now come here. My niece can't be the only one that has some fun with you.
Stop it. Please, I'm with Kendra and this is wrong.
Are you sure? Because if you turn me down, I can end all the contracts with your parents' company and they will go bankrupt. Besides, I always get what I want.
Before she could lay a hand on me, Kendra burst into the room.
Stop it, Aunt.
No, I will not. How dare you deny me what I want? I'm your boss, and if I hadn't taken care of you after your parents passed away, then you would be on the street.
That won't fly anymore. As of this afternoon, the Board of Trustees voted you out. You've kept me from taking over the company for too long. They chose me to replace you.
You can't be serious. I won't allow you to take the company from me.
You have no say in the matter. The board discovered all the illicit things you've been up to, bribing, embezzling money, and fraud. I've been waiting for this opportunity for a while.
Just then, 2 police officers came into the room and dragged Beatrice out. It turned out that Kendra had been investigating Beatrice and found that she was doing many illegal things with the company and its money, and had worked both with the board of trustees and the police to end her tyranny. As a result, she was finally able to take control of the company, as she was supposed to all along.
And Juno, I got you this.
She hesitantly pulled divorce papers out of a pocket in her suit jacket.
I know this isn't the ideal situation for you. With this, you can do whatever you like.
To be honest, though, that isn't what I want. I would much prefer to stay with you.
Are you sure? You don't mind that I'm older and kind of a workaholic?
Not at all. The time that we've spent together has made me realize that I have fallen in love with you. I could tell by the look in her eyes that she felt the same, and with joy, she tore up the paperwork and we kissed. The months that followed were filled with a lot of hard work. Kendra made it her mission to clean up the company and remove all of the illegal activity that her aunt had been involved in. Part of that affected my family's business as well, though. It turned out that they were involved in a lot of bribery, and Kendra refused to do business with them anymore. My parents tried to call me and get me to convince Kendra to change her mind, but I blocked their number and ignored them. There was no way that I was going to jeopardize my marriage for them. After all, they sold me off, and even though it was turning out to be the best thing to ever happen to me, I still resented them for it. Months later, I found out that they ended up having to sell off their company as they were bankrupt and were forced to even sell their home as well. The last thing that I heard was that they were buried in debt, and that both my parents and brother were living paycheck to paycheck in a small dirty apartment in a bad neighborhood. And as for Beatrice, well, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison for all the crimes that she had committed. As for me, Kendra paid for me to go to college, and after I graduated, I joined her company as an accountant, and eventually worked my way up to be the head of finances. It was quite rewarding. And even though my wife owned the company, I was never shown favoritism and had to work hard to prove myself, which I found rewarding. Today, we couldn't be happier. And not only has our company grown, but our family has as well. We have a wonderful son and are expecting a daughter any day now. Thanks for watching. Please like the video for the algorithm. Hi, my name is Troy. I live with my wife of 3 years in a house just outside of the city. We're modest people, but not because we don't have money. We do, but that money almost entirely goes on my wife's medical care. You see, I'm a doctor. I work almost all the time, picking up extra shifts when I can, so that I can afford to pay for her medical bills. And any other time I have free, I used to do what I can in our home to keep it clean and habitable, especially since my wife spent most of the day in bed or on the sofa. She had an illness when she was younger that wrecked her immune system, so she was prone to illness throughout the year and got tired easily. It was hard, but she'd been like this the entire time I had known her. I knew what I was getting into when I married her, and although she has her bad days, I love her just as equally then as I do on her good days. On this particular day, she was feeling tired. She'd woken up with me once again, but I knew that when I left, she'd be asleep once more.
I thought you had the morning off.
I'm so sorry, doll, but I'm working in the morning. I'll be back this afternoon, I promise. And if you're feeling well enough at any point today, you could try to start packing for our vacation. Or maybe if you're not, then you could write a list, and I'll help you pack this evening.
Sure, honey, see you later. Love you.
Love you too. I left the house as my wife went back to sleep. I loved my job. I worked as the head of oncology, so I talked with a lot of different kinds of people, from children to the elderly, and each of them were suffering in their own way. Some made it, and others didn't, but every day I was able to return home. I had to separate myself from my job. It was hard, but harder if I let myself focus on the patients when I had to focus on my wife. Ah, Dr. Troy, I thought you were taking the afternoon shift today. But no worry, good to see you working hard. Good man, good man.
Looks like someone had a good morning, if you know what I mean.
I rolled my eyes and went on with my work. My colleges loved to gossip.
That afternoon, when I came home, I was pleasantly surprised to find that Marion was downstairs, working in the kitchen.
Hey babe, I'm feeling great today, so I thought I'd make you your favorite. How about some creamy garlic pasta?
Do you even need to ask?
I didn't think so.
It was great to see Marion in such a good mood, and with so much energy. I warned her not to overexert herself, but she waved away my worries.
Either I'm well tomorrow or I'm not. Either way, I'd rather spend the time I have now doing stuff with you than spend tomorrow holed up in bed and regretting it. I didn't have anything planned for this afternoon anyway.
We took a walk around the local park, and then we watched a movie together. We talked well into the night and then fell asleep in each other's arms. As we climbed into bed, I noticed that she'd changed the sheets 2 days early, and it struck me how sad it is that she predicted that she wouldn't be well enough to do housework again for a few days. Marion deserved better than a life where she only had half the week to live, and even less of it to live well. But days like this are almost enough to make us forget. But still, it's small things like this that remind me, and I'm forced into a crisis of worry. What if she never gets better? What if I'm forced to watch her get worse and worse, and she's forced to live out the rest of her days, stuck in a body that she cannot fix and suffering with each second?
What are you thinking about?
You changed the sheets today, and I just thought how sad it was that you had to do it today, because you thought you couldn't do it tomorrow.
Let's just focus on what we do have and not what we don't, okay? Right now we have a clean bed and each other. What do you want to do with it?
The next week went by better than the last year. I felt like things were really pushing in the right direction, and although I was working so much to help cover the costs of her medical care, I was never less inclined to go to work than I was in the days when she was healthy.
Don't be hard on yourself. Of course you have to go. You have the responsibility of so many lives on your hands. You're a hard worker. I appreciate it, and I know your patients do too. I'll see you when you get back this evening, and then tomorrow we can go on with our vacation.
I felt like a kid waiting for the bell to ring so I could go home. The entire time I was at work, I was bouncing on my feet and tapping my fingers against my thighs. I couldn't wait to get home to Marion, and I couldn't wait until we went on vacation.
Have a good holiday, Dr. Troy.
Thanks, Nurse Patricia. See you in a week. I was so excited to get home that I had forgotten to worry about my wife's condition. When I arrived at the house, it was quiet and she was in bed, pale and shivering.
I called your best friend Mark. He's going with you tomorrow.
But Marion...
I've called my parents. They'll come to get me and I'll stay with them while you're gone. You've worked so hard for this. You deserve a break. Besides, Mark just broke up with his girlfriend, remember? He needs this too.
I was upset that she was unwell, and even more so that she couldn't join us. But she was taking a tone that I was all too familiar with. It meant that she'd made a decision. It was final, and she wasn't willing to hear any arguments against it. Since she wasn't going to be at the house while I was away, I took a precaution and set up a camera in the lounge, facing the sofa and the front door. This way, if someone was to break in, we'd see them. I almost told Marion, but then I thought that knowing about it might just make her worry more. She needs to relax. So the next morning, I met Mark at the airport and we flew to Mexico and got ready to spend a week together at the hotel. The first 2 days were fine. We drank cocktails by the pool. We played table tennis until our arms ached, and we ate so much that we had trouble standing up afterwards. On the third day, I started to get worried. Marion was replying to my messages, but they sounded different. They didn't have the nuance of her way of speaking. She must be a lot sicker than I thought she would be if she can't even answer me properly. I tried calling, but she didn't pick up. Then, I remembered that I'd installed a camera into the living room. Maybe she never left. She often worried about being a burden on me. Perhaps she was worried she would be burdening her parents too. However, when I saw the live stream, it was not my wife, curled into the sofa, watched TV. No, it was my wife with another man. Isn't that your boss? Isn't he like older than her dad? She's been cheating on me with my boss. Suddenly, things started to make sense. I remembered that every time she was feeling better, my boss also came into work in a really happy mood. Did that mean that they'd been with each other on those days? While I was hard at work, trying to find a way to cover the cost of her medical bills and our rent, she was betraying me? What are you going to do? I'm going to make her regret ever doing this to me. I was angry,
But more than that, I was hurt. I thought we were in love, but in reality, she wanted something else. Something I don't understand. I knew I wanted to get payback, so I called her dad and told him that I hadn't heard from Marion in a while. And could he please ask her if she's okay? When he expressed confusion, I faked concern. She's not there? She told me she was going to your house. She was feeling so unwell when I left, and she'd promised to call you, so I just thought, oh no. Maybe she's not been picking up the phone because she can't. Sir, please, you have to go and see if she's okay. Okay, I will go check on her. I felt bad for putting my father-in-law in that position, but I was enraged with what she'd done to me. I knew I needed some kind of payback. Mark and I watched on the camera as 5 minutes after I hung up, the door burst open and Marion and my boss were startled away from each other by the arrival of her dad. He shouted out in surprise, which brought our neighbors over to see if they were okay. And I knew that from there would be no redemption for Marion. Our neighbors were the worst kind of gossips. Within 10 minutes, I knew that the entire street would know what she had done.
Marion, what on earth are you doing? After everything Troy has done for you? And the shame you bring on this family. I hope this old man has a house, because when Troy kicks you out, you certainly won't be invited to stay with us.
It was a bitter victory, but I had Mark and a hotel room and an endless supply of drinks to get me through it. I talked with Marion's dad, and he explained everything. I thanked him for letting me know. When I got back, I used the video as evidence when filing for a divorce, and I then kicked her out of the house. As for my boss, well, his wife too found out and divorced him, and he paid her a lot in alimony. His reputation was messed up, so the hospital fired him. Marion now lives with her parents, and I hear her mother is treating her badly after seeing the video, but she deserves it. I'm angry that Marion did this to me, but I'm happy that I eventually caught on. Better to stop it before it gets out of hand than to live a life of lies. Thanks for watching. Please like the video for the algorithm.
Hi, my name's Diane, and I always used to think that I was a super likable person. All through school, I was popular, and not in the bratty way. I was popular because I was nice. I went to parties every weekend and had friends on all the different teams and from all the different clubs. I liked knowing so many different people, and I enjoyed having friends who were as kind in return as I was to them. When I was 21, I married Jonathan. We met at work, and then stayed in touch, even when we both left to pursue more illustrious careers. We dated for 3 years, and in that time, we spent time with each other's families. It wasn't until later on that I noticed something was off. We'd been married a year, and we were in a hotel with his family for Christmas. None of us enjoy the cold weather, so we sequestered ourselves away on the sandy beaches and in the sunshine in order to feel some heat. We'd been there for 3 days when things started to go wrong. First, it was to find a huge orange stain on the back of my favorite white dress. Then, all my bikini tops went missing. I was growing more and more disconcerted about the goings-on, right up until my sarong was found in the public poolside bathrooms. Jonathan, do you think someone is trying to sabotage our holiday?
Sabotage is a bit dramatic, but certainly someone is playing pranks on us. Probably my brother-in-law when he's drunk.
This made the most sense. Of course, it was just a prank. I was little peeved about my clothes paying the price, but when Jonathan made a lighthearted demand over breakfast that the prankster return my things, I found them in the bathtub. I made a quick laundrette run, and I was happy to call it even. If anything, I was quite glad that I'd been included in the family so much that they felt comfortable playing tricks on me. I never outwardly reacted, and in hindsight, I think this was the first mistake. Perhaps if I'd been visibly upset or angry, maybe it would have been a sign that I was human after all. But my silence on the matter was likely the cause of the escalation. On the 5th night, I was poisoned. I fell so ill that I had to be taken to hospital. They had to pump my stomach, and even then, I spent the rest of the vacation stuck in a hospital bed recovering. I was miserable, but my husband stuck by my side the whole time, and even slept on a cot beside my bed. The doctor said that it wasn't just food poisoning. They said the kind of poisons in my body wouldn't have come from anything I ate, so it must have come from an outside source, meaning someone did this to me.
I don't know why anyone would want to hurt you.
Me neither, but someone did. We need to be careful.
If we find out who did this, we'll make sure they get what's coming to them.
We all went home at the same time, and Jonathan hugged his sister and mother, who expressed their disappointment that he couldn't be there with them.
Though, of course, no one can blame you for being such a doting husband. Good of you to stay with Diane all through her sickness. And you, dear, are you feeling much better? I'm so sorry. Your holiday was ruined, so...
I'm fine. Just glad to be out of the hospital and on my feet again. I'm so truly grateful that Jonathan stayed by my side.
Of course. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but by your side.
You could have let him go for one day. It's his holiday, too.
Don't be absurd. I never wanted to leave. She repeatedly asked me to, but I never even considered it.
Whatever, Jonathan. I just think she should loosen the reins a bit.
I was so upset by what she was saying, but also not too surprised. My mother-in-law had warned me that she and Jonathan were close as children, and that she was used to getting her way. She must have wanted to use the holiday to spend more time with her brother, and I got in the way. This was the first time I got a bad feeling from her. I didn't say anything or act on it, but I did keep my distance from her as much as possible. My suspicions proved correct when the next family gathering. Any uncertainties I had were washed away when I found her sneaking into my room and cutting the sleeves off of all my clothes. She didn't see me sitting in the corner. I'd stolen away a few minutes of time to just relax and not listen to her subtle, disparaging remarks. She'd obviously chosen to think I'd gone to the bathroom and decided to use that time productively. I filmed her without her knowledge, and she continued on, blissfully unaware that I had caught her in the act. Unfortunately for her, she'd cut up Jonathan's clothes, not mine. I assume that she hadn't meant to make that mistake, but she also hadn't meant to be caught. She's not nearly as smart as she wants to think she is. Later that night, while Jonathan and I were in our room together, I debated my options.
Did someone cut my clothes up?
I think maybe it was your sister.
She never did know when the pranks were too far. Gosh, she can be so annoying.
Jonathan stormed downstairs and demanded his sister explain herself.
What the hell, Jonathan? You're just going to take her word?
She has it on video. You didn't even check the room. She was right there.
I could see the moment her anger at me turned into something deeper, something more dangerous. I could see the fire in her eyes exploding like a nuclear bomb, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to walk away from this unscathed. That night, after she'd spoken privately with Jonathan, we were in bed.
She just wanted to spend more time together. She was jealous of you. She promised to stop.
I knew how much Jonathan loved his sister. It was probably that fact that stopped me from saying anything else. But she didn't stop as she promised. The next week, I was approached by a coworker. She told me that she'd always thought I was so nice and was disgusted to learn what I'd done. She walked away before I could ask any details. I noticed after that how many dirty looks I was getting. I was good friends with everyone in my company, so to suddenly feel such animosity shocked me to my core. Please tell me what's going on.
We all know you were caught in your neighbor's bedroom, Diane. And here, I thought you loved Jonathan.
I pleaded with her, trying to explain that whatever she'd heard was a lie, but she turned her back on me and walked away. After that day, no one at the office talked to me again. My boss told me that I was on thin ice, and that I was lucky she was letting me keep my job. I tried to tell her that none of what she had heard was true, but she wouldn't listen. I was devastated, but I didn't know what to do. I couldn't talk to Jonathan. He'd be so upset to learn that his sister hadn't stopped, and I was quite certain that he didn't. I had to take matters into my own hands. First, I took a video of my neighbors introducing themselves. On one side is Mr. and Mrs. Baker, a couple in their late 70s for whom I mow the lawn and cook dinners for often. On the other side, we have a widowed mother of two who I babysit for every Tuesday night so that she can go to the cinema, something she used to do with her late husband. My neighbors were good people, and they were happy to be interviewed to disprove the rumors. When I returned to work on the Monday, after having sent out the video, the atmosphere was much lighter. For a week, I thought maybe I'd gained the upper hand.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. You canceled the conference room just last night.
What? No, I didn't cancel. That wasn't me.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I wasn't here, but I know that the event was canceled and it's your name here.
Do you have any other rooms?
I'm sorry, but we don't.
I was so humiliated. This was the first time I was asked to book the work conference, and somehow I'd failed at it. When I told the boss, she was so angry.
I gave you one extra responsibility, and you ruined an important conference. Now I have to call all of our investors and apologize for your failure.
I was invited to pack my things. After the rumors they'd sent around, my boss was very suspicious of me. After this, I guess she just couldn't take it anymore. My boss's ex-husband had cheated on her with her events organizer, and it was too much. I didn't even argue. When I got home, shoulders sagging and tearful, Jonathan came to me immediately. I explained what had happened, and he looked furious.
This was my sister, wasn't it? I'm very disappointed that she didn't stick to her promise, but she's brought these repercussions upon herself.
I'd never seen Jonathan so angry. I already felt snubbed by his sister, who he once held in high regard. I was worried that I'd be disinvited to the family if I complained, but Jonathan took matters into his own hands. The first thing he did was call in a noise complaint to his sister's apartment, and then anonymously sent complaints to her landlord about pets and indecent exposure. He hacked her emails and sent salacious emails to married coworkers. She lost her job and her apartment in the same day and moved in with her mother. That same day, she demanded we arrive at her parents' home.
She got me fired and evicted.
What on earth are you talking about? Why would Diane do that?
Actually, it was me. I found out that you had Diane fired, so I gave you a taste of your own medicine. And I know that if you did that, then you probably stole her clothes and then poisoned her while we were on holiday.
She paled, and her mother and father looked furious.
Did you really do all of that? My goodness, I knew you were jealous, but this is too much. You've brought shame upon us all. Get out. You can live on the streets if this is how you treat family.
She isn't family.
You aren't her family. And now, you're not mine either. You've crossed a line, and you should be grateful that we're not going to the police. Goodbye.
She stormed out of the house, and I felt guilt at first, but Jonathan was right. She had gone out of her way to ruin my life. She almost killed me. She brought this upon herself. When she was left to suffer on the doorstep, begging to be allowed to stay, I felt bad, but Jonathan took my hand and promised me that I was family, through and through, and that true family didn't hurt each other like that. Thanks for watching. Please like the video.